I'm Sherilyn Skolnicki, and this is Brilliant Balance, the show for working women who are ready to shine. Each week, I bring you ideas, inspiration, and insight on balance, business, and getting it all done gracefully. You ready? Let's be brilliant. This is episode 237 of the Brilliant Balance podcast. So as I am recording this introduction, we are preparing for an annual trip with one of my coaching circles to go to Canyon Ranch. Now, if you've never been to Canyon Ranch, it is an exceptional place. I talk about it a little bit in this episode. And there are several locations around the country. The one we are headed to is in Tucson, Arizona. And it is just stunning and just a really incredible sort of energy vortex, like an amazing place where really special things happen. Very focused on health and well-being across all modalities that you could define that. And as I prepare to go to that trip, there are obviously a lot of things on my plate. And I thought this might be a good week to re-air an episode that I actually recorded live at Canyon Ranch last year with Dr. Diane Downing. Diane is one of the medical directors at Canyon Ranch. She was an exceptional presence. I just so enjoyed getting to spend time with her in person, which is not how I get to do most of my podcast interviews. And we had a live audience for that episode of the women who were there with us last year. So in this re-aired episode, I want you to listen for the Canyon Ranch philosophy, which Diane really does a good job of stating explicitly and then also sort of illustrating through the language that she uses and even her demeanor. So the approach that they take to vitality and wellness throughout all life stages is really deeply relevant for me, for the women in our community. And I think that you're going to find it to be really an enlightening perspective, one that I hope will spark you to make maybe some small change in the way that you are thinking about your own health, your well-being, or the approach that you are taking to aging. So here is my interview with Dr. Diane Downing. So friends, I had the best experience in April of this year. I took a group of clients to Canyon Ranch. This group is kind of our most advanced coaching circle. So these are women who have been through, at a minimum, Breakthrough, which is our sort of signature coaching program that runs for 4 months. And then they have enrolled in this alumni program, which we call BOLD. And BOLD, I love this, stands for Building Out Legacies and Dreams. So it's a group of, usually 25 to 30 women. And I took this group to Canyon Ranch for a few days at the midpoint of their year-long experience. So I typically host a client retreat in the fall for all of our clients. And then this is this kind of midway point between client retreats, so happening in the spring. Now, last year, this trip was canceled because of COVID, which was heartbreaking. And so I think it made it even more special that we had the chance to be together in person. And it was just a beautiful experience with this group. And, anytime you gather a group of 20 or 30 women in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, we talk a lot about wellness. We talk a lot about aging. We talk a lot about how we want to feel. And typically, we want to feel vibrant and healthy and beautiful, throughout our lives. And the question that comes up is, how do you do that? Well, Canyon Ranch has been guiding the way for decades. The resort has locations in Massachusetts, California, Nevada, and Texas, in addition to their kind of flagship property in Arizona. And I have wanted to go there for years, and this was my first experience. It is a true luxury wellness resort, let's say. And I hope you have the chance to go someday because it was really an exceptional experience. But until you can, I wanted to bring a little piece of it to you. And there are principles, ideas and practices that I've brought home with me that we talked about there.
And I had the chance while we were there to interview Dr. Diane Downing. She was kind enough to let me call her Diane throughout this interview, live with my group present when we were at Canyon Ranch. And so we've titled this episode, Live Younger, Longer. And I'm going to share it with you today. So I want you to listen for these practical ideas that you can weave into your day-to-day life. I mean, the team at Canyon Ranch are the experts on this. They have departments throughout the resort and across all aspects of wellness, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. It's a beautiful setting, a place where it's not hard to really drop into the present moment and have an appreciation for nature, and for quiet. So I think when we're on, what I'll call like a mountaintop experience like that, it's easy to connect to some of these ideas. And what was important to me was that we extract things that we can do every day, to feel better. And sometimes I think, I met Diane the day before we did this interview for a short time, just so we could know each other a little bit. And I think she's the kind of person that's easy to put on a pedestal. You think, sure, must be easy for you. Like you work at Canyon Ranch every day, but she's so real. And I think you're going to love and hear that just in every word that she speaks. She is a board-certified family physician. She graduated from and then completed her family medicine residency at the University of Arizona. And then she has fellowship training in integrative and alternative medicine through Dr. Andrew Weil's program. And you may be familiar with that. It's at the Arizona Center for Integrative Medicine. And she'll tell you in this episode, I think, or we'll link to it in the show notes, about how you can find practitioners local to you who are also, have similar certifications. She is passionate about women's health. She has made an emphasis in her own career on helping women navigate the transition through menopause. And she has training in botanical medicine, nutrition, energy medicine, mind-body therapies. Like she's really in this holistic space. She was born and raised in Ohio, which is where Brilliant Balance is headquartered and where I live. And she and her husband moved to Arizona in 1980. You'll hear that whole story in this episode. And today they have 3 grown children. And she is as vibrant and vital and exceptional as you would imagine someone who practices at Canyon Ranch to be. So without further ado, let's meet Diane and learn how to live younger, longer. Diane, thank you so much for agreeing to meet with us this morning. This is our first Live from Anywhere broadcast. So this is live from Canyon Ranch. And boy, are we having an exceptional experience.
This is the place for it. And thank you so much for having me.
It's awesome. So let's start off. Tell us a little bit about the philosophy behind Canyon Ranch. Like, what's the vision for the guest experience here?
Well, back in 1979, when Mel and Enid Zuckerman, our founders, started Canyon Ranch, it really was fueled by Mel's desire to impact his own health and well-being. He knew he needed to make some lifestyle changes. His father had recently died of lung cancer and realized if he hadn't been a lifelong smoker, that might not have been his outcome. So Mel used that as what he calls his aha moment to really make some changes in his own life. He went to California to a fat farm, as he called it back then, and got on track with his health. He spent a few weeks there and came back, and he and Enid decided to create an experience here in the desert for people to really focus on improving their overall health and well-being. And so from that point on, initially, Canyon Ranch was kind of like a fat farm. The calories were very restricted with what people ate. Everybody got little vitamin packets with their meals, and it really had a strict philosophy. But as we have gained knowledge and as medical science has evolved, we've realized there's a lot more to it than that. And that's probably not the way to go about it. So looking at what are things that people can do that are sustainable. What can they learn here about enhancing their health and well-being that they can take home with them and practice in their own life? So we've been able to bring in so many different departments here at Canyon Ranch in terms of the medical department, of course, my department, the nutrition department, the exercise physiologist, the spirituality department, the behavioral health department, where we help people with things like stress management and those kinds of things. And then a lot of fun things, metaphysical things people can experience. So it's intended to be a place that people can really jumpstart their health. And that's often what we hear from people. I'm here to jumpstart my health. What can I do to get back on track and be the healthiest me that I can be? Mel's philosophy has always been living younger, longer, and that Canyon Ranch was a place that was to present people with the power of possibility as to what they could achieve.
Oh, you are speaking our language for sure. I mean, I just love the concept behind the resort, why it was started, and the evolution that it's kept up with. What are we learning? What's the kind of cutting edge of the science and the philosophy behind wellness as it's evolved over those decades? How did you get to Canyon Ranch? Tell us the story.
So when I left Ohio when I was 18 years old, I got married to my high school sweetheart at 18, and next in June we'll be married 41 years. So a rare story, I think, that has worked, being married at such a young age. But he was stationed at the Air Force Base here in Tucson, which is what brought me to Arizona, and went to University of Arizona for about a year. Then when my husband got out of the Air Force, he was pursuing his own career, so I did some other things for a while. And we had started a landscape company, and I worked with his company. I did all the books and put together the bids and did the payroll and all those kinds of things. And I decided I wanted to go back to school. And I was in my early 30s at this point, and I had 3 young children, and thought, yeah, I think I'll go back to school. I think I want to be a doctor. And I thought, good Lord, I don't even have my undergraduate degree yet, but I'm going to be a doctor. So took a few classes here and there. And finally, at age 40, I received my medical degree. But during my training, I came and spent a month at Canyon Ranch as one of my medical school rotations. And then when I was in my family practice residency, I did another month rotation out here. And I remember walking across the property and thinking, I could see myself working here someday. This is my idea of how I want to practice medicine. And so I guess kind of looking at Mel's philosophy of the power of possibility, that's what I saw. And so after I finished my residency and my fellowship training, I did a couple of years at a community health center in a little town south of Tucson to help with some medical school loan repayment. And then I got a job here at Canyon Ranch, and I've been here ever since. So it's been a remarkable journey.
I love it. I love the story. I mean, I love the getting married at 18 and everything about it.
Crazy.
But I especially love the decision at 30 to say, I'm gonna pursue this path. Like it's not too late. It's never too late. And obstacles or not, I'm going to figure out a way to make this happen. And then to think about where that led, that you're sitting at this world-renowned place teaching and sharing and practicing. It's just such a beautiful story. I love it. It will be inspiring to a lot of people listening, I know for sure.
Well, I think it does show that you aren't limited by your age. You can do anything you set your mind to doing, even if you've got 3 little children at home and you're helping your husband run a business, because I did all of that while I got my undergraduate degree, while I went to medical school, while I was in residency. All of that still happened. I used to tell my kids, it's like I went through kindergarten to 12th grade twice. And they thought, you're crazy, Mom. But I think it was a bit of an inspiration to them as well.
For sure. Yeah. For sure. So let's talk about this philosophy of living younger, longer. Mm-hmm. I'm totally in love with this phrase, and I think it's so deeply resonant with what we all want. So when you think about the aging experience from your seat, from the people that you've counseled and practiced with, what scares women most about aging? What are the signs or symptoms that worry us the most?
Yeah, I think from the people that I see, the women that I see here at Canyon Ranch, is a lot of women's concerns are weight gain, because we know that often mid to late 30s, a lot of women start noticing changes in their body. And a lot of that goes along with hormone changes that begin in typically the late 30s, in that, preceding that menopause transition and slowing of metabolism. And how does that affect what our weight is going to be moving forward? And we can talk more about what to do about that in a little bit. But that's a concern. I think a lot of women are also just concerned about the physical aspects of aging, their skin, their hair, their bodies. I think a lot of people, men and women both, really have concerns about cognitive decline. They may be seeing their parents' mental faculties start to decline, and it can be very frightening. And there's a lot of concern about that. And I think balancing their lives, balancing their careers with young children, or maybe children who are getting older and starting to go off to college, and they finally feel like, I'm going to be an empty nester. I'm going to have all this time to myself. But then they've got aging parents, and now their role shifts and they become caregivers for aging parents. And it's a lot to balance.
They're exhausted.
They are.
Yeah.
They absolutely are. And all too often, women do not know how to say, no, I can't do that. Or at least, I can't do that right now. Sometimes that's an easier way to say it. But I think that's a really important thing that women need to be able to bring into their lives, is the word no.
For
Not
sure.
right now.
And what I hear when you say that is it's an energy management issue. So you have the appearance things of weight gain and hair and skin, and then energy of how am I going to continue to manage all the things that are still in my life? Like, I thought it was supposed to get easier. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
And then the cognitive, warding off of cognitive decline, sound like those are probably the big three that you're in dialogue with people about.
And hormone balance. That's probably a big one. I see a lot of women who are approaching that menopause transition and wondering, what can I do about this? How can I ease this transition?
Yeah.
And what are my options? And so I talk to a lot of women about that.
Because it's like a black hole. Like, if you haven't studied it, how would you know anything about it, right? It's a complete mystery about how all those hormones are operating to begin with, much less how to balance them.
Right.
So that's a place where people probably do seek help and would need to seek help. You're not going to self-regulate hormone management. So what are some practices that we can adapt? So we're here at Canyon Ranch learning all kinds of really cool things and having experiences that we maybe have never had. What are some things that we can take back with us and that the people listening can do that help to delay the onset of those less attractive, right, signs of aging, and just help us feel better for longer?
I think there's a number of things that we can do, and there's a lot of things that we can take charge of in our life. We can start to set boundaries with people so that we are preserving our own time for us, that we are finding some way to tap into self-care. Because women in general are the caretakers, and we're so used to caring for everyone else that we often don't take care of us. We put ourselves on the back burner. So I think women really need to prioritize themselves. And by doing that, it's not selfish. Self-care is not selfish. It's something that we need to do because that's what's going to allow us to be available to take care of the people who we love and the people who are counting on us. So what does that look like? First and foremost, sleep. You have got to get your sleep. And that's another area that I hear a lot about, that women are really struggling with sleep. So the things to think about in terms of sleep, I make it a priority for myself to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. I don't compromise on that because it's so important. It's important for our immune function. It's important for brain function. It's important for appetite regulation, for stress management, for cellular repair, for soothing our emotions and storing memories, we need to get that good sleep. But that's often the first place that women might compromise. I can get by on 4 hours of sleep. No, you can't.
No, you can't.
No,
right?
you can't. So getting good sleep. And we can talk about some things that can help to promote good sleep and restful sleep. And it's interesting. I worked with a sleep doctor when I was doing my fellowship. And we talk a lot about things that we can do, medications for sleep and what have you. And he said, I often think it's valuable to ask people not what can you take to go to sleep, but what can you let go of? And I think that says a lot, because often we might go to bed at night and we have so many thoughts in our head that we just can't turn off our brain. So what can we let go of? I think that's an important place to start.
Oh, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever find yourself saying, I just need a minute to breathe? While the whole idea of meditation can sound totally intimidating, I've found that stepping away from the chaos of life, even just for a few minutes, is incredibly restorative. So if you're short on time, but could use a few moments of peace right about now, listen to my 5-minute meditation for working moms. It'll help you clear your head and come back to your day feeling centered and refreshed. Head over to brilliant-balance.com/breathe. Press play and settle in for a few mini moments of peace right now. And it's our mind. Sometimes there's physical impediments to sleep, but our minds are often the biggest impediment to sleep. So what can you let go of to go to sleep is a beautiful thought.
And one of the other things that is going to help facilitate restful sleep is separating ourselves from our devices for a good hour before we go to bed. That blue light that's emitted from cell phones, from tablets, from laptops, even from the television, interferes with our natural production of melatonin. So if we can distance ourselves at least for an hour from those sources of blue light, that can help stimulate our own natural production of melatonin. Now, as something that you could take, melatonin may be a nice option. There's some great products out there. Generally, people find lower dose products are more effective than higher dose products. There's sustained release formulas that can help you fall asleep. There's immediate release formulas that I may often recommend for people when they wake up in the middle of the night and can't go back to sleep, little dissolvable tablets that have a quick onset of action. So, that might be something nice to consider. And making sure that if you're exercising, you're doing it earlier in the day, vigorous exercise earlier in the day, not late in the afternoon or early evening, because sometimes that can be disruptive to sleep as well.
And you know what I've found, the older I get, light and temperature are so important to me. Like if that room is too warm or there's any light, I'm in trouble. But an eye mask and the right temperature, and it's a whole new game.
You're right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So sometimes really easy wins right in front of us to help with sleep. What else besides sleep? What's another practice we can adopt?
Well, I think that often we don't appreciate the amount of stress that we have in our lives, or perhaps we just normalize it. And especially over this last year, it's been incredibly stressful for everyone. And because of that, we've tended to normalize stress. Everybody has it, so we just deal with it. But do we deal with it? Or are we just burying it? Are we just ignoring it? We need to acknowledge, I'm really stressed out, and what can I do about that? Things that I think can be helpful is a regular breathing practice, a daily breathing practice. One of the practices that Dr. Weil teaches all of us who go through his fellowship program is a practice called the 4-7-8 relaxing breath. And it's breathing in through the nose for a count of 4, holding it for a count of 7, and then exhaling through the mouth for a count of 8. So the key with that technique is that the exhalation is twice as long as the inhalation, in for 4, out for 8. And that ratio seems to have an effect in training the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and relaxation side of the nervous system, as opposed to the fight or flight response. And that by incorporating this practice on a daily basis, and he recommends 4 rounds just 4 rounds in and out in the morning and the evening. It takes all of maybe a minute and a half. That can really start to allow that parasympathetic nervous system to be more pronounced, that rest and relaxation response. So that during the day, if you're stressed out about something, you can do a few rounds of this breathing, and it really helps to settle things down. What do we say to people when they're stressed out? Settle down, take a deep breath. There is a reason we do that. Breathing does have the ability to regulate our sympathetic and our parasympathetic nervous system and help tone things down a little bit. So you can do it anytime, anywhere. We always have our breath with us. So I think that's a very simple technique, is to bring in a regular daily breathing practice, perhaps a daily meditation practice, even if it's 5 minutes, can be enough to really help calm the mind and the body.
And I love that everyone listening can do a 4-7-8 breathing technique. We'll link it in the show notes. I know there's some online reminders and guides, so we'll link that up for people. And we just released a new 5-minute meditation specifically for this audience. And it's 5 minutes on purpose for just the reason you said that, we don't always feel like we have 30 minutes or 60 minutes. That can seem so unattainable, but starting with 5, starting with guided, where you don't have to worry too much about what am I going to think about, am I doing this right, is just a great pathway into some of these practices that can seem a little intimidating until you learn the benefits of them.
Right.
So I love what we're sharing here. Any other ones you want to share around practices we should think about adopting?
I would be conscious of what your nutrition is like. Especially if we've got busy lives, we often may resort to grabbing some fast food on the way home or maybe skipping meals. But our nutrition really plays a crucial role. I think there is a lot to we are what we eat. And if we can pay a bit more attention to that and focus on real foods, that we're eating whole foods, whole fruits, whole vegetables, whole grains, that we're getting away from the fast food and the processed food and the sugar, because sugar is very addictive. And most of us are aware of that. You have one cookie and it leads to the whole bag. That it's a dopamine stimulator. It's something that we get pleasure from. So that's part of what constitutes things that are addictive, are those things that trigger that pleasure center in the brain. So really backing off on sugar, because there is some data to show that a lot of sugar in the diet accelerates the aging process. It can start to lead to insulin resistance, which is related to an increase in belly fat. And that's often where women start to notice they're gaining weight as they're getting older, is in the abdominal region. And that's the worst place to gain it. So I think really being conscious of sources of sugar in the diet, trying to dial that back, being aware of where those sources are. A lot of people find that yogurt is healthy food, but the flavored yogurts can have so much sugar in it. So start paying attention to some of the labels of things that you're purchasing in the supermarket, and try to be more conscious of whole foods, lean protein, limit alcohol. I know people hate to hear that, but boy, as women, we really do need to take that to heart. There's research showing that 1 drink a day, and 1 glass of wine is only 5 ounces. That is not a lot, but that's what 1 serving of wine is, 5 ounces. But there's research to show that 1 drink per day is associated with about a 13% increased risk of breast cancer. And it goes up from there. 3 drinks per day, you're up to a 35% increased risk of breast cancer. So be thoughtful about how much alcohol is in your diet, and know that it can trigger more sleep disturbances, and just be thoughtful about that.
Thoughtful is such a great word, because having been here now for a couple of days, Canyon Ranch is not preachy. Mm-hmm. Right? And it's also not a deprivation experience. Mm-hmm. Last night, the group that I have here live or in person, we had a dinner in the demo kitchen. And one of the things that Chef made was a barbecue sauce that didn't have sugar in it, right? Mm-hmm. She was like, this is why I'm not putting ketchup in, and this is why. And it was delicious. It was on salmon. Everyone was raving about it. And we had a mocktail that was a low sugar mocktail. I can't remember exactly what was in it, but it had a cinnamon stick in it to stir. And it was exceptional. And it was delightful. And I don't think anyone there felt like they were being deprived of that special experience of having like a celebratory beverage with dinner. So just the mind opening that gives you of there are ways to do this that is not, I am not about deprivation. Our brand is not about deprivation, but finding pleasure in things that are good for you. And reorienting your mind to see it that way as going on a hike is enjoyable, not torture, right? Having that meal is delicious, not depriving. And that reframe is everything when you're trying to make these changes, I think.
And that's what we're all about here, is showing what kind of alternatives and options there are. How can you bring these things into your life so it doesn't feel like it's work when you're becoming more physically active, and it doesn't feel that you're becoming deprived because you're making dietary changes. And that's probably the other key component that I would want to bring in is we've got to move. We have got to move our bodies. In fact, some of the research has shown that women who are physically active before they start leading into that menopause transition are much less likely to gain weight. So developing a healthy fitness routine or some regular practice of some kind of physical activity will go a long way. I personally make it a habit that I walk 2 miles every single morning. I get up, I get outside, and I mean, fortunately, I live in a place where I can walk outside heaven, most mornings. Yeah. I'm not trudging through snow in the middle of winter. But it's been a great practice for me to get outside, see the sunrise, be in the open air, listen to the birds. I used to wear my earbuds and listen to music or a podcast when I was walking. And I thought, I want to just listen to nature while I'm out walking and be present. And that's been a godsend for me. So I walk, I move every day, and I sleep at night. So those are my 2 things I don't ever compromise on.
And if you're not seeing Diane because you're listening to this podcast, she is the picture of health and wellness. I mean, this is what we all aspire to. I can tell you because I'm sitting here face to face with her, 6 feet apart. I'm curious about this. What are some of the benefits or blessings of aging that we should embrace?
As we get older, I think things start to come a little bit more into perspective, that we get a better sense of where our values are, what's important, and what really we can let go of. I've found that as I've gotten older, I'm more inclined to try to be in the present moment, be in the here and now, not worry about what people think or what I should be doing, but to really savor the moment that I'm in, because this is really all there is right here and right now. Yesterday is gone and tomorrow isn't here. So we need to pay attention to the here and now. And when we're with the people that we care about, that we're truly present with them. We're not thinking about what's to come, what's tomorrow. So that's one thing that I have found helpful as I've evolved over my life's journey, is to be more present, be more mindful, be more in the present moment. And it's not always easy. I remind myself constantly to do that. I think also we can stand to learn from various native cultures where aging is prized. People go to the elders in societies for wisdom and guidance. And I think we need to embrace that role and to appreciate where we've been in life and what we've learned and how we can share that with other people, and to not shy away from that role. Oftentimes, we have a lot of freedom as we start moving into the second half of our life. We may be looking towards retiring, and children who have gone off and started their own lives, and we've been able to be perhaps a little less worried and concerned about our kids because they've gotten their wings and they've left the nest and they're soaring on their own. So we have that bit of freedom as well. And that's welcome. it's a nice relief to have some of those worries weigh not so heavy on our shoulders any longer.
I mean, wisdom and freedom sound like two pretty big benefits to be aspiring to, right? What a beautiful reframe. Because if you think about where we started when I said, what are we the most worried about? And I'm looking in this room here with me today and imagining you listening, it's all appearance related. It's the physicality of it and what will people see and how will this be perceived? And those blessings are internal, right? They're where are we of service? And because of the freedom, how can we be of even more service through that wisdom that's so hard earned over our lifetimes? So I think that's a beautiful place for us to wrap. That's what I want to leave everyone with, is that that living younger, longer, physically, we want to feel vital, right? We want to feel vibrant and energized and gracefully ease into these transitions where they're not quite so turbulent, and aspire to the wisdom and the freedom that is waiting for us, to kind of greet us as we arrive there. It's beautiful.
I would agree. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being with us today. This is amazing.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for asking me. It's been fun.
Okay. Thank you for listening today to this live interview episode with Dr. Diane Downing. I hope that you are carrying something away from this conversation that makes your everyday life better and gives you those tools to live younger, longer. If you are a new listener, please come visit us at brilliant-balance.com. There are tons of resources there to help you fulfill your potential at work and at home. That's all for today, my friends. Till next time, let's be brilliant.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.